Welcome to the Physician Associate Podcast.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Physician Associate Podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined by Amy Erinzella today, who's a Physician Associate in Primary Care. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Hi, James.
I thought it'd be really interesting to talk to you about your journey and your career as a PA so far. How did you decide on where to work?
I knew that I wanted to end up in primary care eventually, and I took an internship year, which was 6 months primary care and 6 months medical admissions, with the view to then settling down long-term in primary care. However, once I started in primary care, I found that I really enjoyed it. That was the place I wanted to be. I felt like primary care was the best place to learn about primary care. And so I actually made the decision not to rotate into medical admissions, and I've been in primary care ever since. I remember at the start, it was quite basic. I was doing a lot of minor illness, spending a lot of time shadowing people, listening to telephone triage. I was also lucky enough to be supported to spend a few days away from the surgery, where I spent time in dermatology clinics and sexual health. So I was able to upskill in areas that I'd previously been less confident in. And over time, I took on more and more responsibility within the practice. I started seeing a wider range of conditions. I required less supervision, and I also started to lead on my own areas of medicine. So I ran a few projects. I was the lead on B12 and contraception, and also the baby clinic. And I'd also started learning some extra qualifications. So I started coil fitting training.
And this was something that was run by the Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Health, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So when I started my training, I didn't realise that the qualification wasn't actually open to PAs. So I'd found a consultant who was happy to teach me. We'd spent some time in clinic together. We'd done all the theory learning. And then when it came to me actually sitting my exam, it didn't allow me to register because I didn't have an NMC or GMC number. So the consultant I worked with, she was really supportive. She saw the potential of PAs, and she approached the faculty on my behalf and asked them to open the exam to me. I sat the exam. I then did the practical side of things and gained my letter of competence. So I was the first PA in the UK to ever be awarded that. And I've since joined the faculty as a committee member. So I sit on the future membership committee, and I've been representing the views of PAs and discussing with the faculty how we can get PAs more involved in sexual and reproductive health. And they've actually been really good recently at posting things online about PAs and getting PAs involved.
I saw recently that the faculty have opened their diploma for physician associates now. So you're really opening the door for others to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, so all of the faculty's qualifications are now open to physician associates. And I know a few of my colleagues who've already started the diploma. So it's really exciting times.
Oh, it's brilliant to hear that PAs are getting involved in the diploma already. For anybody who's listening and wants to find out a bit more, can you tell us what's involved in doing the diploma?
So the diploma is one of the qualifications available through the faculty. So the qualification I did was a letter of competence in intrauterine techniques. So that involves learning how to fit coils, remove coils, and handle any complications associated with coils. The diploma is more of a general qualification that gives you confidence to consult patients in all areas of sexual and reproductive health and contraception. So whereas I focused on coils, the diploma covers all kinds of contraception. So you've got the long-acting contraceptives, but also the pills and barrier methods, but also sexually transmitted infections, fertility, all those kinds of things are covered as well.
So if people are interested in doing the letter of competence, what sort of commitment in time and effort is that for them?
So the letter of competence in intrauterine techniques involves some online e-learning, which takes about 12 hours in total, and you can do that at your own pace. That then prepares you to sit an online theory assessment. And then in order to actually develop the physical, clinical skills, you need to find yourself a trainer. You would practice with some dummy models. You would do some supervised coil fittings, and you have to keep a log of the fittings you do. So you have to insert a certain number of different devices. And once your trainer is happy that you can do this competently, you're signed off and you can get your letter of competence.
Fantastic. And do you know about the diploma as well?
Yeah, so the diploma is different. With the diploma, you have online e-learning in the same way. There's an independent learning portfolio that you keep online, which is self-guided learning, topic investigations, case discussions, and feedback from patients. You do an online theory assessment similar to the letter of competence. There are summative clinical assessments, and you have to do 5 of those within clinical settings. And then there's a half-day assessment at an assessment centre.
Are there criteria about who can be your supervisor?
Yes. So in order to supervise a physician associate or any other healthcare professional in doing one of these qualifications, you have to be registered as a trainer with the Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Health. So there's a separate qualification that you can do to train to be a trainer. I was trained by a consultant in sexual and reproductive health called Dr. Massey. She was fab and she's been a great advocate for PAs. And since training me, she's decided to integrate a PA into her own service. So she now works alongside a PA who works between GP and sexual and reproductive health. He's called Brad, and I think he'd be an interesting person for you to speak to on the show.
That's really cool. And I'm hoping to talk to Brad actually as well on another episode to find out more about working in sexual health. But you don't have to be a PA in sexual health specifically to do any of these courses, right?
The qualifications from the Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Health are open to all physician associates. So if you work in an area where you might have to discuss sexual and reproductive health with patients, then these qualifications are for you.
You touched on the supervisory element, and relationships between physician associates and their supervisors are really important. And that relationship between physician associate and their supervisor is so important, isn't it? It can be so dynamic and so beneficial to both. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that partnership was so successful for you?
So I have an amazing supervisor. She's been there right from the start. So I had a placement with her as a student, and I was placed with her for my internship year initially. And 2.5 years later, we're still working together. So she's been a huge advocate for PAs in the area. She got involved in the PA-specific CPD programme for our health board, and she chairs our CPD teaching. She has been very supportive of my education. She doesn't just see me as someone there to do the work and see the patients. She sees me as a valuable member of the team and is very keen to invest in my further development. She recognises that the key to having a good PA in the surgery is to balance the needs of the practice with what the PA is actually interested in. And I think that's why it's worked so well.
Excellent. Sounds like a really good partnership. Do you think there's something unique about the physician associate being a point of continuity in the team that helps within general practice?
Definitely. So I find that a lot of my patients, once they've seen me once, they'll come back to me again. They find my appointments easier to access, but they also like the fact that I'm a permanent member of staff when historically we haven't had many permanent people in the team. So patients value it, but staff also value it. I'm an easy source of information for them in terms of how the practice runs and how things work.
The more I learn about the history of our PA profession, the more I'm appreciating that, as in every healthcare system around the world, areas that are under-doctored, areas of deprivation, areas that struggle to recruit historically are considering things like physician associates as part of the workforce solution. Do you see that growing in your patch in Wales and further afield as well?
Yes, I do. I've seen the profession grow massively since I started. We've gone from 6 PAs in the health board across all specialties to now having almost 30 PAs, and it's really taken off. It's working well, and the plan is to keep recruiting year on year. I think as long as there's appropriate supervision, then the PA role, you just can't go wrong with it, really.
One of the things that PA students often say to me, and I felt myself as a student as well, is a worry around a lack of career development and progression once you've qualified. It doesn't sound like that's a problem for you. You're finding lots of postgraduate qualifications and projects to work on.
Yeah, I've never seen the PA career as being a flat career like a lot of people think it is. I think it's different to the doctor's training in that doctors have a very kind of prescriptive course that they follow. So they choose a specialty and they start off as a junior and they work their way up the ranks. Whereas I see the PA career as being a bit more flexible. So I've started off as a qualified PA. I can pick up extra responsibilities, I can upskill, I can take extra qualifications. And then in terms of moving forwards, I can just pick up responsibility in different areas. I've already started with a bit of teaching. I'd like to get involved in research, maybe a bit of management further down the line. So I think actually with the PA career, it's just as good as any other in terms of progression.
You get back what you put in, isn't it? You can make of it what you will yourself. What's been the most surprising bit in your PA career so far? Is there anything that you weren't expected or never saw yourself doing?
I've taken on a lot more responsibility than I thought I would. So I've taken on quite a lot of management responsibility in that I lead in certain clinical areas. In the surgery I work in currently, I run the baby clinic, and because of my links to the health visitors, I also lead for children's safeguarding for the surgery. And so I do a lot more than I thought I would, especially at this point in my career.
If anybody listening to this, physician associates at the moment, are thinking about their career options, how would you sell them on going into primary care? What sort of person does it take to be successful in primary care?
So I think to succeed in primary care, you have to be up for a challenge. You have to be open to managing uncertainty. We don't have all the same resources available to us as our colleagues in secondary care have. There's a lot more independence in general practice. You're sat in a room by yourself with your own list of patients. So you shouldn't shy away from a challenge and be prepared to be a lifelong learner, because there's so much to learn in general practice and so much to keep on top of. I love the variety. I love the fact that you get to know the patients. I especially like that you see patients of all ages, whereas you wouldn't get that if you chose a specialty in the hospital. And I think there are so many opportunities when you work in general practice to pick up teaching and management responsibilities and to take part in research. I just feel like it's the place that suits me the best.
And for any GPs and wider practice staff, practice managers, AMPs, nurses, admin staff that are listening to this and don't know about physician associates, where would you point them to find out a bit more about PAs?
There are some really good resources on the Faculty of Physician Associates website. They've got a whole chapter dedicated to PAs in primary care. There are also quite a lot of PAs in primary care who are quite present online. For example, I've written a blog for the British Journal of General Practice about the first year in primary care. There are quite a few RCGP events throughout the year about supervising PAs and integrating PAs into the team. And any practices who are considering having a PA on the team should get involved with the local universities, maybe offer some placements to some PA students and get a better feel for what they can do.
Such a good point. Absolutely. Amy, it's been great to hear about all of the things you've achieved so far, and I wish you all the best for the future. Will you come back on the show in a few years' time and let us know what you've been up to?
Definitely. Thank you, James.
And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to talk to you?
The best way would be either LinkedIn, where they can search Amy Aronzella, or on Twitter, my handle is @AmyAaron.
And I'll leave links to Amy's social media in the show notes below. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening to the podcast too. I hope you found it useful to learn more about how physician associates can work successfully in primary care and options for developing and progressing your career as a physician associate. I'll leave links to the courses from the Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Health in the show notes. And in a future episode, I'll also talk to Brad, who's a PA working in sexual health and doing that diploma. Also, I hope to make more episodes about physician associates working in primary care and in hospital specialities too, and how you can develop your career and progress. If you're a PA and would like to come onto the show to talk about your work and the specialty that you're in, please get in touch. You can get in touch via Twitter and Facebook @PA Podcast UK. Thanks for listening, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Physician Associate Podcast.